Hi, I'm Mina Malik Hussain and you're watching The Coffee Table. And as always, we have a wonderful show lined up for you today. It's utterly fascinating that today we're going to be talking about intellectual property rights, and most importantly, patents. Because I don't think that you can talk about intellectual property without talking about the safeguarding of intellectual property. And I think that it's really interesting because it's a sort of aspect of research and an idea generation that we don't think about that much in these kind of concrete terms. Now, clearly some people do, but a lot of people don't. So I'm delighted to welcome on set today Dr. Farid Malik, who is the former chairman of the Pakistan Science Foundation. He is an expert on the application and commercialization of technology and played a key role in establishing the Intellectual Property Organization of Pakistan, and to his credit, holds 4 US patents, so he knows what he's talking about. And through the internet, we are welcoming Mr. Farrukh Irfan, who is an advocate of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. He is a retired judge of the Lahore High Court. He also has the distinction of being the first Asian on the board of directors for the International Trademark Association, and so far is the only Pakistani to ever have been on it, and has been elected by the International Bar Association for 2 years running amongst the top 20 international intellectual property lawyers. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Very excited. Have some experts on board to talk about intellectual property. So I'd like to begin at the beginning, Dr. Malik. What is a patent?
A patent is a temporary monopoly which is given to the person who has innovated or comes up with a novel idea which can be implemented, which could be commercialized. And so for a period of 20 years, he has the exclusive rights over that research or over that innovation. But after 20 years, then it becomes public knowledge and anybody can use it. But during this period, he has to reveal everything, all the details.
Okay.
And some of these details, they're called claims. He makes claims which are all listed. And he gives out all the details about his patent, which are not revealed in a technical publication or a paper. Patent is more detailed. It gives everything, all about his claims. What makes it unique? What makes it novel? What makes it commercialization, applicability of that.
So it's like you reveal the kind of the nitty-gritty of that process or whatever you've developed.
Absolutely. So that is how human race knowledge is preserved and it grows. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel again and again and again. So I think this is a big contribution of the West, that they have been able to gather all this knowledge, all the information. And whenever you want to embark on a new product, or you want to develop something new, you usually do a patent search.
Oh, okay.
So you know what has already been invented, what already has been patented, you know, and then you have to work from where the others have left.
Which is great because you're sort of taking it forward and not wasting time on developing a process or anything that
or reinventing the wheel again and again, you know.
Quite right.
And unfortunately, in the East, like for example, the traditional hikmat, what we call the herbal medicine treatment, because of lack of documentation and lack of patents, it was not properly documented and not transferred to the next generation. So instead of expanding knowledge, see, the knowledge did not expand as it should have, you know. And
that's something I want to cycle back to in just 1 minute. Hi, Mr. Irfan, can you hear me? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me over here.
It's a pleasure. So I wanted to ask, Mr. Irfan, how does one define intellectual property?
It's a very wide term and it's an ever-evolving term. It actually started with intellect and started with copyrights. So when an author wrote a book, you know, a poet wrote a poem, or a musician created some music, they were considered as the owners and authors of that copyright, and then it included in it the trademarks, then designs and patents. And in the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, you know, it was known that the rights concerning patents and designs and trademarks were known as industrial designs. But as I said, it's an ever-evolving term. Now we have, in the electronics, we have circuits, which are included in the intellectual property rights. We have data, which is included in intellectual property rights. We have signals, even smells and sounds have also been included in the term of intellectual property rights. So anything which distinguishes you from the other and which enables you to market your product in a manner that it goes to the public with your reference can be termed as an intellectual property right.
But that's fascinating. Even a smell or a scent can be considered intellectual property. I think that's true. Like iconic scents, are somebody's unique idea. So, Mr. Irfan, why is it important to safeguard one's intellectual property?
You see, in the old days, there were these guilds in the UK, and there was this khilaf in our area, like the subcontinent or the Muslim world. Until and unless you do not reward somebody who has worked hard, like Dr. Malik has said, for his patents, there is a research, there is expense involved. There will be no human incentive to improve and to work upon it. There were these goldsmiths guilds, there was these ironsmiths guilds, and these were the titles, and this was the protection given by the king to these workers for their workmanship. And then they were given for like 100 years the exclusive right to make a certain item for the king and for the public. So this kind of protected their economic economic abilities and enable them to reap the benefit of their hard work and their labor and their research or their natural gift or intellect. So it is very, very important. You see, any country which has progressed has a very strongly established and a very robust intellectual property system. Only the third world countries like ours, which do not respect intellectual property are lingering behind. I can give you examples of Europe first. It started in Europe, then America came into the picture. America has one of the most robust intellectual property law system for the over last 100 years. And this enabled them to progress because they were protecting the rights of the legitimate owner. And then, as Dr. Malik said, giving him an incentive for a limited period of time for the patents. And then the next person, so they were not just and using somebody else's invention and not working hard. And this led to research organizations, farmers. Now we are going through COVID, you see. We have this very unprecedented time of COVID. If it weren't for the research laboratories which are working to find a vaccine, we would still be, just wondering and gasping in the dark what to do with it. You see, using our so-called totkas and, our undocumented and inappropriate medicines and losing the lives of precious lives, you see. So it is the research and it is this amount of money that goes into that research and a collection of talented and educated people who are able to run that research, which enables someone to find a patent and to obtain a patent. And then there is a whole system of obtaining the rights. These government offices, the intellectual property offices or the patent offices, they have examiners. They are experts and they're supposed to be experts in their field. Then they examine it for the prior art, that what's available in the market, what is new, what is novel, is there an improvement, and what right can be given to a particular person.
Quite
and
right.
After you're given a right, then
yes. I want to ask you about those rights in just a minute, because so from what I understand, Dr. Malik, this means that patents and having patent is actually rewards the person whose research has, who's invested time and money and effort into research. And it actually also encourages people to continue doing that research. And it's an incentive because there is a recognition and a monetary reward, compensation also involved in that.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I think as Farrukh Saab also mentioned, I think there is confusion between science and technology also.
Okay.
And I think which should be understood. Science is knowledge, knowledge-driven research.
Right.
and you share knowledge, you publish papers, you go to your peers, you talk about it. But then there has to be a reward system. And the reward system comes through the application of your research.
Right.
For that, you need technology. But it is technology which is the application of science. And technology is money. It's business, you know. And so I usually, the course I teach is new product development.
Yeah.
I usually say it's a journey from romance to finance. So research is romance.
Yeah.
See,
a purely sort of academic, intellectual endeavor, you're researching, you're thinking of new ideas.
That's right, absolutely. Science consumes, technology produces. So most of these third world underdeveloped countries, they have not been able to link science with technology. So that is one of the reasons that a lot of research goes waste in a way that it does not hit the marketplace. There is no business plan. At the end of the day, there is no reward system. You know, that how you're going to be rewarded, how you're going to be recognized, how you're going to make money. And Farrukh mentioned about the research being done on COVID and all this, but research alone is not enough. Now they're going to reap the benefits of that research, the reward of that research, and then they'll keep the cycle going.
Yes.
You know, and the more money will be pumped in, there'll be more research. So in fact, it turns the wheel much faster when things get applied, when things can be converted into wealth, it generates money, the money goes back into research, and then more research is conducted. So that's how the wheels of research turn very fast.
But do you think that this is also a problem of the kind of research that people are encouraged to do? And I'm wondering about Pakistan, for example, because if one's research doesn't necessarily have a market application, then it's just research and it's just limited to a paper.
That's right. Actually, research is also divided between basic and applied research.
Okay.
Now, the developing countries, because of the lack of resources, usually do not get involved with basic research.
Okay.
They do more applied research, or we also call reverse engineering. It's focused that we want to make a product. Like, for example, we decided to make a nuclear device.
Right.
Now, what was available, what we could gather, our research together, we put everything together, and we were able to make a nuclear device.
Yes.
It was a product-driven research.
Quite right.
Or we wanted to make a tank. We make Al-Khalid
or a rocket, you know, like Farco makes rockets, and they've done that.
That's right.
Before.
They were the first to go into space.
Yes.
You know, that is the honor we had. We were the first country in Asia to produce silicon from our own sand in Asia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it stopped there because there was no market plan. Now, how was that silicon to be converted into a marketable product? We could have made silicon wafers, we could have made solar cells, we could have collaborated with a market-driven research organization and found out how we could bring it to the marketplace. We didn't do that, you know. So we made silicon and that's about it. So once all the pieces are together, and then to protect that knowledge, patent comes in to make sure. So when I was in the States, you know, I used to write a lot of papers, and then I was advised to go for patents. See,
so how is it different then? So the ideas that you had in a paper and the patent that you then eventually filed for, there must have been a sort of process to convert that theory into practice.
Well, there is always research is also creating knowledge. It's original. But if you have to go for a patent, you cannot publish it. You first have to get a patent so that it establishes that it's your novel idea, it's your innovation. Once you file the patent, then you can publish, sure. And publish is basically when you publish technical articles or technical papers, it's more for intellectual knowledge and curiosity. But once you file a patent, then it has a commercial end to it. It has an end to it where it can be commercialized, applied, and converted into wealth.
And I suppose that time limit is also a motivational aspect to it. You know, after 20 years, game over.
No, it's not. It's 20. I think 20 years is enough. By that time, even technology catches up, and you know, new things are invented. I think 20 years is a very reasonable time. This is for patent, but for like copyright.
Yes, but that's something that I want to interrupt you here because we're going to take a very quick break and come back to talk about copyright. Stay with us. Hi. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're talking to Dr. Farid Malik and Mr. Farrukh Irfan about intellectual property rights. And what does intellectual property mean and what are patents? And I find it thoroughly fascinating. Mr. Irfan, tell me, there are various kinds of patents like you mentioned. So there are utility patents and there are provisional ones and design ones. And it's, like you said, it's an evolving field. But from what I understand, trademarks and copyright are two sort of very major parts of safeguarding or sort of part of intellectual property when we talk about intellectual property. So tell me more about copyrights, for example.
Okay, copyright is one of the oldest form of intellectual property rights. And these relate to the labor and work of an individual mostly, which are authors. Copyrights exist in books, in music, in your literary work. So it's primarily work related to artists and like in your paintings, in your drama. If this program is being produced, so the producer has the copyright in this program, while you have your right as a presenter. And so there are various people who are involved in the development. For example, if an author writes a book, it's a famous book, he would go to the publisher, then he could undertake an agreement with that publisher that I would retain the rights in this book, and you would only have the right to publish it once. And if it's the next time we will come around. So this is. Authors don't know about these things, you see. So they just write and they feel happy that their book is published, while the publisher makes, the cream out of it, and they earn all the money and the poor author remains a pauper. I can give you examples like our
I want to make notes now.
Yes, and it affects, our young people today. I see we have such a talented group of people, artists. They are singing songs, which become like millions of hits, or they are heard by millions of people, but they don't make any money out of it. You see, it's the studios, it's the organization which releases that, which makes all the money out of it. Yes. If you see in the West, there is the artists, you see, like if you see Michael Jackson, people know, if you see Elvis Presley from the 60s, they have left behind, even after their death, they have left behind estates which are collecting royalties on the copyrighted music that they published, you see.
Yes.
And on the other hand, unfortunately, our maestros like Mehdi Hasan Saab, they have died paupers, you see, and many authors which were the celebrities, which were the best authors of their time, they don't have money to treat themselves in the last part of their lives. You see, many artists who have been, top artists, they have to ask for state, from help from the government, and our government is also not very generous with them. You see, it gives them very little money for that. You see, so the whole system is to reward the author or the owner of the copyright in artistic, literary, or similar works, and then this brings in then some sort of financial benefit which they deserve. You see, others should not reap the benefit of their intellect.
Absolutely.
It's so exploitative. Their ideas, basically.
Absolutely. And I think that also contributes to this general idea that intellectual effort and this kind of creative intellectual effort is often not taken seriously by people, because they're like, oh, what's the big deal? It's just an idea. But it's an enormous labor and unique labor of somebody's mind to come up with, that particular idea, whether it's a song or it's a poem or music or sort of, anything really. So do you think that if people were more cognizant about the effort that goes into these things, like having a patent or having an intellectual copyright over that material would help alter perceptions about that kind of work as well?
Like ideas of Ahmad Faraz Saab, ideas of Allama Iqbal, they are not ordinary. Similarly, there are hundreds and thousands of artists. If somebody's melodious voice is not mine or your voice, you see.
Absolutely.
And when they sing a song and they put life into that song, you see, so they should be rewarded for that. And this is a gift of nature in terms of good singing abilities. Maybe they have worked very hard. There are these classical music gharanas, you see, they have worked all their lives, they train their children, but it's so unfortunate that they're not recognized as somebody who are important in our society, somebody who are contributing to the leisure of the public, somebody who's contributing to the general good of the society, and they are not paid. They are not paid adequately. There is a concept, because many artists are individuals and they cannot collect royalties. So in the copyright law, there is a concept of collection societies, you see, societies made for collection of royalties. So if those societies are existing, then this is a commercial entity which will talk to an artist and say, can I act on your behalf? And if the music of that artist is being played in a restaurant, restaurant is making money because it is creating that ambience to the customer, playing the right music, but they're not paying anything from that collection to the artist. So this sort of activity, needs to be promoted, and especially our young artists who are upcoming, they need to be protected. There are many artists, I have advised many young children, young people from NCA, they make prints, in their, and these big companies just copy them. You see, they don't give them the textile design. You see. And then they copy them, and then they send them for hundreds and thousands of rupees a suit. So, and those designs are unique. You see, somebody who has designed the dupatta you are wearing, this is a unique design. It is an eye-catching design, so it must be protected. So if it is protected, then it can fetch the rewards for the designer. It can fetch the rewards for the producer. But if you buy it for, say, 1,000 rupees, I will go and produce it for 100 rupees because I have not done any labor, I have not created the design, I have not made any effort to do it. So this is what is happening in our country.
That's true.
And obviously, we have no regret.
Yes, that's what I'm curious, is that because we don't have a copyright, let's say, but if, for example, let's say hypothetically one does have a copyright on an image or a song or whatever, do we have any checks in place in Pakistan, at least, where one can sort of enforce one's copyright?
Well, I think it's not only just copyright. Enforcement of intellectual property is not simple and it's not easy. It's quite complex. Because when you get into any kind of protection or litigation, it takes a lot of time, effort, and money. But what Irfan Farrukh Sahab also said is that there should be some kind of a mechanism in place where young budding artists, writers, scholars can go to apply for intellectual property and file for intellectual property, either copyright or patent or trademarks or whatever, or geographical indicators, that's another thing. Right. So there should be some mechanism in place, and there should be, even for enforcement and litigation, now, the mechanism is not there to file. Yes. And then the enforcement comes later on. So first we have to have
getting ahead of oneself.
I encourage my students, I send them to Intellectual Property Organization of Pakistan.
Yes, which we have. We have an actual proper government organization.
That's right.
Which looks at patents and helps you get a patent.
We always had the organization, but they were spread out.
Yeah.
Like, for example, patent was with Ministry of Industries, copyright was with Education, trademark was with Commerce. So they were scattered, So now we signed in 2001, we signed with WTO, World Trade Organization, and under that signatory, then we combined all of them together under one umbrella.
Right.
And that's what we helped set it up in 2001, 2002 time frame. So Intellectual Property Organization of Pakistan now covers entire intellectual property domain, which includes patents, copyrights, trademarks, and geographical indicators.
Yes, so now that's one thing that I want to talk about in 1 second. But what I wanted to ask first is that then what is the procedure for applying for a patent?
Well, that also depends. You can go through I'm not sure, expensive or inexpensive attorney like Farrukh Irfan Saab, go to his law firm and they will file for you. Mostly the good organizations, they have access to an intellectual property lawyer, and he comes up, he files your application, and he makes sure that all the claims are in there, presented in a form, because it's very important when you file, that sets your position in the queue.
Yes.
So you have to file, you have to be first to file to be able to own that patent. So it's very important that once you file, it's properly packaged and presented together. But in a raw form, if you want to do it yourself, you can download from the IPO website the form, and I encourage my students to do that. Yes. We have this class of new product development, and they come up with all kind of new ideas. So I encourage them to file for a patent. So they go, they download the forms, and they fill it up, and they file it. In Science Foundation, when I was there, we encouraged that the research that we funded, we would also file patents for them.
Oh, okay.
So we offered them that we will file patents for you, number one. And number two, if the patent was awarded, then the Science Foundation will reward the scientist with a reward, one-time reward of 200,000 rupees for that research.
But then the Science Foundation would be the owner of the patent?
Either Science Foundation or the organization in which that person was working. Like, for example, PCSIR or Atomic Energy Commission or, or a university. The university would own that patent, but there will be one-time award to the researcher.
Which is also an incentive for organizations to fund research so that they can file for patents and have those.
And encourage their researchers to file patents, to interact, to make sure that the researchers interacting with patent with attorneys, so that they know, like for example at Intel, every week a patent attorney would come and visit and find out if anybody wanted to file a patent.
Well, that's actually really interesting, like a really good business practice also. We're going to take a very quick break and come back to this fascinating conversation. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're having such a wonderful conversation about intellectual property with intellectual property lawyer Mr. Farrukh Irfan and the former chairman of the Pakistan Science Foundation, Dr. Farid Malik. So, Mr. Irfan, from what we've talked about so far, it seems like it is quite tricky to establish one's intellectual rights to an idea or to a thing also. And I'm also now thinking of geographical indicators, which is also an area where, patents apply. And for example, the very famous basmati rice, situation that we've been facing as well. Like, it is tricky, isn't it, to sort of say that this region produces this product, but then this product is produced in many regions across a wider continent. So it sounds difficult to do.
Actually, it is not, Mina. You see,
oh, good.
This is the problem, you see, because in Pakistan, the biggest problem is that quacks are everywhere, you see.
Oh, gosh,
and also, like in doctor medicine, people don't know, they have not learned, they have not made an effort. They want to be, known as experts in medicine and then kill people. Similarly, in intellectual property rights, unless and until, a good lawyer has not had, a general lawyer cannot be an intellectual property lawyer unless he or she does not have a science background, until and unless he or she has not studied intellectual property laws, because these are very complex laws. And so geographical indications has become suddenly interesting in Pakistan because of basmati issue. And we have been lobbying the government for the last 25, 30 years that, we have so many products, so many goods, so many produce, which are associated with the area in which, they are grown. So please have a geographical indication law. We never had a law. Thank God that a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, by the effort of Intellectual Property Lawyers Association, they were able to introduce a law. And how it works is that every country has got specialty products which have over the centuries, because of the weather, because of the geographical conditions, because like for basmati, it is grown in the areas which are in the immediate foothills of the Himalayas, and this is watered by the rivers which are coming from Himalayas, and this is in the plains. You see that the areas which are in Shakargarh, Sialkot districts, Muridke districts. So this is a God's recipe. God has provided this and particular environment to this place, and it is over the years that the rice has been grown over here.
So it actually then seems to, or like we were talking about in the break, the salt in the Kiura mine,
that's right,
which is unique to Kiura. So it actually then seems to make a lot of economic sense to have that kind of trademark. I'm not sure if it's a trademark or patent or what it is, because then
it's a geographical marker.
The geographical marker, because then it gives...
Or Virginia tobacco, up in the north.
Oh, interesting. It's called Virginia tobacco, but it's grown in KP.
In KPK,
huh?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But then that gives the product a certain unique quality or a unique claim, which then would obviously mean that its value increases.
Yes. Actually, at the end of the day, it is the marketability, the business end of everything.
Yes.
And if the marketability and business end is understood and covered, then nobody gets exploited.
That's very important. See, that's extremely important.
And Farrukh also mentioned that people are getting exploited because it's not fully understood. At the end of the day, you make money through business.
Yes.
And some of our researchers, when I'm in the Science Foundation, I had to explain it to them that every researcher cannot make that kind of money, because you have to have an industry, you have to establish an industry, you have to have a marketing outlet to sell your product. So it is a team effort.
Yes.
So the researcher, and then he does research, and then that research leaves the lab, goes into production, a factory established, and then product sells in the market.
Yes.
And then you have to protect the intellectual property rights of the researcher, of the technology person who's implementing it. So it's a chain,
Absolutely.
Even agriculture.
And at all stages, there are things that need that kind of protection. And particularly if we look at this basmati situation, I think that the problem originated in the 2000s when an American firm tried to copyright basmati, and I think that's when our neighboring country had to step in and say, look, you can't do that.
That's right.
Because then you see, and there are examples of then developed countries trying to exploit certain goods indigenous to developing countries and to be like, oh, well, give us the patent for this or for that.
Because their business ends are covered. See, that's the issue. I was mentioning agriculture also.
Yes.
Even agriculture today is business. That you have to have a business plan. It's not enough to produce.
Yes.
If you don't have a business plan, you don't have farm to market roads, market outlets, you cannot benefit from your produce.
Yes.
So at the end of the day,
and especially for an exporting country.
That's right. And also exporting.
Yes.
Sure. So at the end of the day, you have to have a business plan. Now in the West, these linkages are very well established.
Yes.
Like for example, the entire Silicon Valley came out of one university, which is Stanford. See? So when a researcher is doing research at Stanford, there is a technology park right outside the gates of Stanford. And he gets his degree, walks out the gate of Stanford, and he enters the technology park and is in business.
Yes.
So he gets all the business plan made, he gets financial plan made, he can put...
And he also has the security of knowing that the unique idea that he or she has is also protected by law.
Exactly.
So if somebody wants to use the computer program you've developed or the software you've developed, then you have to be given a royalty, and then of course, go ahead, use it.
That's right. And also there is no harm in making honest living and honest money.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you need money.
Yeah.
And if you don't have money, then you have to rely on the government for arms, for support.
Yes.
Yes. So there is no harm in making honest money. A lot of these scientists and a lot of these artists, they are not trained with that kind of business mentality or market mentality. They are more driven by self-satisfaction. And,
of course, and it's a sort of, it's an endeavor. It's the romance of the endeavor,
Absolutely.
as you say.
So that's why I tell my students that's a journey from romance to finance.
Yes.
So if your finance is not covered, then your romance is going to fail in between.
So, Mr. Irfan, tell me, we do have an organization that does look after our patents and intellectual property, but somehow there does seem to still be a gap between the enforcement of those rights.
Or effectiveness.
Or the effectiveness, yes, or the effectiveness of our intellectual property situation. So what can we do to improve the situation for all these innovators amongst us?
I think that this is, Mina, this is a very pertinent question. IPO is tasked with improving the regime of protection of intellectual property. And with the amendment of the laws, they've also got tribunals now which work under the IPO to see that people's rights are enforced. But the problem is we have two shortcomings. And although we have some very good officers who are very much on to the work, but we have shortage of resource, both monetary and human resource. And IPO should be working, with the guidance of I think Intellectual Property Lawyers Association and so on, and in consultation with them to ensure that properly qualified people are working in the IPO, and that the objective of putting the right technology, putting training of people, and allowing them to disseminate and dispense with the rights of the people in the appropriate manner is very important. We have to compete in a global market. Today, Pakistan is not alone. We are a part of the International Committee of Nations. And where do Pakistanis stand in this Committee of Nations? We unfortunately not at a very high position. You see, China was not able to file more than 1,000 patent applications in the year 1985. And United States was the leader, but China last year overtook United States of America in filing patent applications and is the world leader in the highest number of patents granted in the world by the Patent Cooperation Treaty. United States is at number 2. So we have, and this department like IPO has to play its role, because you see, without the guidance of IPO, and without appropriately functioning of IPO, we cannot progress in intellectual property rights protection and its implementation and dissemination. So as a nation, we have to work very hard. This should be the priority, I think, of our governments. We should spend money. We should train our people. How many PhDs are we producing every year? Very few, you see, as compared to other countries. If there are no PhDs, there will be no inventions, you see, because these PhDs do the research. And another aspect is that what Farid Malik Sahab was talking about earlier, I want to, state on that universities should have patent departments. Anybody who has studied abroad, if Farid Malik Sahab was writing a paper, the intellectual property, head of the university would come to him and say, give him guidance to go in this direction or that direction. And come out with, with a paper which would lead to an invention. So today in the developed world, most of the patents are coming from the academic institutions. Yes, they lack marketability and commercial aspects, but then there is an office in the university which is called the commercialization office, and this deals with big corporations. This deals with big corporations to sell that those patents.
Absolutely.
So when I work on these patents, when I work on international patents, 60% of the work that I do is with universities and institutions internationally, and subsequently these patents rights are sold for hundreds and millions of dollars to the commercial entities who are able to market them and then earn money. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Absolutely. I think that sounds really promising, and it sounds like something that can be done. And since obviously the system exists in other places, it's probably not hard to replicate if we have enough resources and attention paid. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Malik. Thank you so much, Mr. Irfan, for being on the show and sharing your ideas.
I hope we can build on this.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. If you have an idea, go and see an intellectual property lawyer, and make sure nobody steals that idea.
Good idea. Good idea.
Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the coffee table. Bye now.